Hey there, everybody. How you doing? Camera's stable now. Well, I wanted to say howdy to everybody in the world and run this idea past you. Well, I had we had some family over from Tennessee earlier, and we were talking about time and whatnot, and the perceptions of time, and got into this conversation where I kind of, it's as if when you get into a conversation and you kind of consider something that's like, whoa, that's totally possible. And it's only through conversation sometimes that you get those revelations. That's why I do videos too, because I have those same revelations myself while I'm doing videos. But anyway, I wanted to convey this idea that it kind of made me think, that time is relative. Time is a perception, okay? The example, I guess I should give, the extreme example is when a person is doing something really mundane that doesn't take a lot of thinking, time seems to just fly by. When a person's doing something that takes really intense focus and concentration, and I'm not talking about getting into something where you do lose time. That's because when you're into something, you're constantly you're doing the same thing, the same repetitious tasks. So time can, depending on what you're doing and how you perceive time, it can seem to go by fast or slow, right? So anyway, when people get into an accident and they say the light flashed before their eyes really quickly, that's one of those examples of how time can move very, very slowly. So what they say is that the more parts of your brain that are activating, the more active your brain is at that moment, can make time seem longer. So the more brain power you're using, time can seem to take longer. And I don't know, the thought I had was that, people are out there trying to sell, life-enhancing, life-lengthening drugs. People are taking all types of, supplements and surgeries and whatnot to try to live longer. And I thought about this. I thought it's such a huge business, living longer. Of course, we're humans. And to deny the fact that we all want to live a little longer to experience more and have more fun, that's denying being human. We want to be alive. And I started thinking, what about, rather than lengthening our lives, lengthening our perception of life by somehow stimulating and activating the brain to a degree which makes time seem to go by very, very slowly. Now, of course, this is all theoretical and just an idea that popped into my head, but it's kind of a scary proposition, actually, because if you consider it, when your brain is very active, you're usually in a panicked or an emotional state. Usually in, fear. It could be a stress response in a way. And so if if you're dying or you're getting mugged, time seems to go really slowly, and you remember details because of that. And I guess that you probably wouldn't be able to function in daily life if your brain was constantly active like that. However, what if you set aside like a couple minutes each day that you dedicate to this experience where you live out like another day? You could double your life technically by just using this technique if it was possible. It's just a theory, just an idea. The thing that got me thinking about it and what we were discussing was DMT. And somebody was asking if time really seems to go slower, and I said, well, it can for some people. It can take a really long time. It can seem like you're there for hours. And there was one story of a guy who came back from a really intense DMT experience and claimed he had lived an entire life during that experience. Now, of course, people always elaborate. It could have very well just been bullshit. But who are we to say he didn't? Could an experience be so intense that it creates another life within a life? And only the mind can know that for sure. I imagine it is possible, but not likely. It doesn't seem likely. I don't know. But anyway, the idea that if DMT can do that, maybe, there's a certain key to the brain that allows us to make our days, instead of 24 hours, they seem like 100 hours, And what would be the ethics of that? And would it be a good thing? You know what I mean? course, we'd still be living the same amount of real Earth time, but our perception of it would be completely different. It just blows me away. It's a weird thought. Anyway, thought I'd share it. Take care, everybody.